Do you remember the first really big purchase you made when maybe you got your first job, or you kind of left home, or whatever it was, when you actually felt like an adult? For me, it was this. Long before I was into hand spinning, I was a seamstress, or as I think the kids call it, a sewist. So this really was a huge purchase for me, and it was my first full-time wage packet, and it was quite a big percentage of that wage packet, but it felt like I was a proper grown-up because I'd been sewing on my mum's sewing machine, and so to actually have my own sewing machine was massive. So in this video I'm going to be talking about relearning to sew, because although I sewed an awful lot as a teenager and into my 20s, as I got busier and busier with work, so I did less and less sewing, and this has pretty much been sat in a cupboard for about 25 years. So when I pulled it out and thought, I know, I shall make myself a silk blouse, because the me of 30 odd years ago would have done that with no problem, I sort of found I'd forgotten how to do it. So I thought I would start a series of me relearning to sew. If you're new here, my name's Becca, and you are very welcome to the conservatory of my humble home in West Wales. Now, if you're an old friend, welcome back. So today I am going to be attempting to make something very, very simple. I've been really interested in using thrifted fabrics and upcycling, and I bought this from a charity shop about a couple of weeks ago, I suppose, and it's a table runner. But I have a round table, and we don't particularly sit at the table to eat very often, but what we do use is napkins, and I keep running out of them. So I thought I would turn this into napkins, and I also thought it would be a really nice, simple project for me to attempt. It's literally just straight sewing and just using a very simple stitch, and hopefully I won't actually make a mess of it. I will change the camera angle so you can see a little bit more of what I'm doing. So you can see this in theory is going to be very, very easy to turn into napkins because it is already hemmed, and the nice woven pattern is going to mean it's going to be really easy to cut a straight line. But my theory is what I'm going to do is, because that's the selvage edge, so I'm going to turn that over, and I'm actually going to do a sort of double turnover and just sew it flat. I was tempted to do a hand sewn hem, but I'm not going to, because it is about practicing using the sewing machine again. So I think I'm going to do that, and then once I've done that, so once that's turned over, I'm going to sort of measure it, like I'm going to sort of make a square. This is a really simple way of knowing whether you've got something square. So basically, there you go. I know that that's going to be a square, and then I can just cut it at the appropriate pitch. So probably I shall just cut it at that line there, because then I know that's straight, and I'm going to have enough to give myself another hem. But obviously it's going to be a bit shorter, because so it's going to be more like, it's going to be sort of there, isn't it? Because I'm going to have turned that over. So it's very simple, but I need simple, because as I said, when I tried to sew this blouse, it just was a horrible disaster. And I'll try and find this blouse a little bit later. If I find it, I'll put it at the end of the video. Anyway, right, let's get on with it. I went to sew at school, and a very important part of sewing is ironing. And if you've watched my videos before, you know that I had a very dirty sole plate on the iron that I had, and someone on here gave me tips how to clean it, and I was like, I shall go ahead and I will clean it. And I turned on the iron ready to clean. I was all set up to clean, and it didn't work. So it just had decided that that was the day it was going to die. So this is in fact a new iron, and I went into the ironmongers in Fishguard, And one of the things about living in a kind of place that's it's kind of, I suppose we're quite remote, is that if you go into the local shops, it's not like going into a big box store where there are just kind of rows and rows and rows of choice, and basically they had one iron and this was it. So I bought it. And I tell you what, it just makes shopping and decision making really quick, because if you haven't got to kind of look through every single kind of iron ever invented in the world and kind of decide which one you're going to have and research it, it's a very quick shopping trip. So I went, that's a steam iron, that's in my budget, I'll have that one. It's the only one you've got. But it's a good iron and I'm very pleased with it. So yeah, so ironing. I'm going to turn down the selvage edge and I'm just going to do a sort of double turn down and iron it, and then I am going to pin it and tack it and sew it. And I suspect that these days that's not how people are taught how to sew. I think if YouTube is anything to go by, then people buy these little sort of clippy these clippy clips. That's not what they're called, is it? Anyway, these sort of little plastic clips, and they clip what they're going to sew, and they don't pin and they don't tack. Am I the only one in the world that is still thinking about kind of pinning and tacking? I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to get on with ironing, and then I'll turn the camera back round so that you can see what I'm doing at the sewing machine. Or actually, I'm not going to be at the sewing machine, am I? I'll turn the camera around in a minute. You'll get it. It will make sense, kind of. This is going to be another one of my quirky videos. I had a lovely comment on my last video, which was all about just the day trip we had and seeing dolphins. And the title was Hot Dogs and Dolphin Spotting. I mean, two completely different things. This is a really quirky video. I was like, yep, that's me. I'm kind of quirky. So yeah, another quirky video. Anyway, right, I'm going to get on with the ironing and I'll see you in a moment. Right. Get this the right way round. Yes, that's where the hem is. So if I turn it down like that and then just iron it like that, so you are absolutely allowed to tell me if you've got any tips for doing any of what I'm doing, because as I said, that sewing machine has been sat in a cupboard gathering dust for years. I have had it serviced, because when I got it out to make that shirt, it sounded like a DMU, which is a diesel multi-unit that you get on the railways around here, this kind of little, what they call a little diesel train. So it sort of sounded like it was a diesel train going over the points. It was clickety-clack, clickety-clack, clickety-clack. And I was like, pretty sure my sewing machine is not supposed to sound like that. So I took it up to Fishguard, to the ironmongers, and they have a service where someone comes and picks it up and they'll service it for you for a very modest sum. And they serviced it, and it is now just working beautifully. I think I'm making a bit of a hash of this. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm doing this particularly well. Oh, come on. Yeah, that is not, yeah, okay, that's a bit better. So if this was regular fabric that didn't have this hem on it, I would do a mitered edge, I would do a mitered corner. But because it's been sewn already, and I don't want to unpick that, I'm sort of having to do a bit of a, oh, now you see, it's not even straight. Don't watch me do this, I'm making a mess of this. Right. I'm going to start again. I'm going to turn the camera off. Okay, we have an ironed seam. It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a pain. This is quite an open weave fabric, so I am definitely going to have to do this this hem like this. And I've got my little glass topped pins, and try not to stab myself. But as I said, feel free to give me any tips, because I really am so rusty. And it's like that with anything that you do, any practical skill you do. If you don't practice it, it kind of, yeah, you get very rusty. I don't think it will take long for the old muscle memory to kick in, because as I said, I used to sew an awful lot, and sort of, I don't know, when I was a teenager, you would have seen me sewing, not knitting, and certainly not spinning. I've only been spinning for sort of, what, about 18 years, so I've been sewing for a really long time. And when I was choosing my options at school as to what I was going to do at O-level, I mean, it was very clear as a dyslexic person that I wasn't going to do a lot of academic subjects, so I did practical subjects. So that was home economics, textile and design, and I really wanted to do agricultural and horticultural studies, but you couldn't do it again with something else for some reason. I think it was, yeah, you couldn't do it with one of the sciences, it clashed too much. So I ended up doing biology, and actually in hindsight that was probably a good idea. And I liked biology. I'm pretty good at, you know, I was good at science stuff. I'm good at numbers stuff. It's just kind of thing with English language I struggle with, as I demonstrate on these videos all the time. Right, okay, so that's pinned. Now I'm just going to tack it, and I have my needle threader because I can't actually see anymore. And yeah, I also haven't got a needle, so back in a minute. I am very keen to start using thrifted and upcycled fabrics. I am finding that I can't find the clothes I would like to in the charity shops. I can find plenty of things made out of polyester, but actually finding things, or things that fit me, things I like, that are made out of cotton and linen, which is what I like to wear, finding it really difficult. And I quite often shop on Vinted, and I will find that I really like a fabric, but it's not in my size. So I thought that it was about time I brushed up on my sewing skills. And I think it's quite common that if you are somebody who likes fibre arts, you also probably quite like textile art. I think they sort of go together. So let's just tack this, and hopefully I've got all the ends caught in, because as I said, it's a very loose weave, but I think it's going to make a great napkin. I don't know what the fabric is. It's probably mixed. It's probably cotton and viscose or something. Viscose is quite an interesting fabric because it is sort of a natural fabric. It is made out of wood pulp, so it does biodegrade. The problem comes from an environmental point of view with the the process of actually making it. And you have to sort of use sulfuric acids and, you know, kind of a bit polluting. But then making cotton, or turning sort of cotton, fluffy cotton buds, bits into the stuff that we sew with, that's quite polluting as well. There's an awful lot of water that goes into it. So I would like to try and reuse as much as I can, and even in our quite limited charity shops around here, you will find quite a lot of fabric, you know, quite a lot of it's vintage, and then you also have got obviously sheets and curtains. You get a lot of fabric in that, and quite often you've got the labels in there so you can actually tell what they're made out of. I feel like I'm being really cack-handed doing this because my hands are just not used to doing it. If I was knitting or spinning, I would just, you know, I would just sort of do it. I wouldn't have to think about it, but I'm really having to think about this, which is a bit of a shock to the system, because literally I am just doing a straight line of tacking, which, you know, should take about 30 seconds, but it is taking me quite a long time. So. Now, the majority of people that watch this channel are crafters, because that's kind of what the majority of what I show. Now, are you a seamstress as well as a knitter, or a sewist? I'm not allowed to say seamstress, am I? It's not the new word. You have to say sewist for some reason. There probably is a very good reason. I don't really know. Again, it's another one of those words that I'm just like, not sure I really know what that means, but okay, I'll go with it. Don't want to offend anyone. So, sewist. Are you a sewist? Or do you just stick to fibre art? So the spinning and the knitting and the crochet and the weaving. In my sort of moments when I think I have all the time in the world, I sort of think, oh, wouldn't it be marvellous if I could learn to weave and then make garments out of the fabric that I've woven. And then I remember that I'm really rubbish at weaving, and in fact don't have a suitable loom, and I don't have all the time in the world. But I am quite enjoying just sort of pottering. Right, okay, let's get the machine set up, because what colour cotton am I going to use on this? I think, so this is a sort of off-white that I have, and I've got quite a lot of it, so I think I'll use that. Right, set the machine up. So here is the moment of truth. Oh my goodness. I'm weirdly nervous about this. Put the pedal in the right place would be good. Still sounds a little bit like a DMU, diesel multi-unit, but not the way it did before I had it serviced. And I know I'm saying really slowly, but I'm kind of nervous about this. Okay, are you a nice straight line? Ooh, a little bit wobbly. Okay, first one done. So this is my last napkin, and I've got 6 out, which I'm really pleased about, and I have gained a bit of confidence, and if you're very observant, you'll realise I've taken the pins out and I haven't actually tacked this one, and I'm just going to try and sew it straight without having pinned it and tacked it, because it is just a straight seam, and being checked fabric, I've got some nice lines to follow, and I am trying to build up my confidence, because I realise that a lot of the kind of what I've lost is the confidence in my own ability. And it was foolish to try and go back to sewing after all those years on a silk fabric, because they are notoriously difficult to work with. So that is pretty much square. Fantastic. So this fabric was from the charity shop. It was £1. It was a table runner. It was already seamed or hemmed along 2 sides. So literally all I've had to do is just do hems and cut them up. So I think that was a really nice, easy project to sort of get back into it. And yeah, 6 napkins in, and I feel a little more confident about my sewing, and maybe I can tackle something that's a little more difficult than this. But I'm glad I did it. I'd love to know if you've got any favourite YouTube channels where someone is teaching you how to sew or relearn to sew, then I'd love to hear about them, so drop it in the comments below. Now, it wouldn't be one of my videos without a trip outside. However, it is blowing a hoolie out there. There is a storm coming in from Ireland, and we are predicted 40-mile-an-hour winds. So I have got some footage for you, but it's actually not from this week. It is from last week, but it is different from what it was on last week's video. So until next time, have a really lovely creative week. Thank you.